weird
All right, Tom.
sorry for the late
Why don't you tell
entry here.
us why you picked Halloween 3?
So I got into this Halloween kick about in August, and I started watching them all and doing the research and sort of watching the behind the scenes stuff. And a lot of times it's the behind the scenes stuff that's much more interesting. In this case, Halloween 3 was sort of like John Carpenter and Deborah Hill trying to shake the Michael Myers feel from the series and trying to make it into an anthology. The anthology part probably would have been a good idea had they not introduced Michael Myers as like a character that everyone seemed to all of a sudden really love. Um, the thing is, back in 1983, people were like, well, it's a sequel. Had they not called it Halloween 3, they probably would have gotten away with the anthology feel. Later on, there's movies like Trick or Treat that becomes like, and Tales from the Crypt type of stuff that becomes, uh, sort of a triptych within a movie itself. Halloween 3 is obviously now a cult favorite. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it now. And honestly, it is, in my opinion, the only true movie that could actually be called a Halloween movie because it taps into the lore of what Halloween is. The first two movies were slasher films that I think just happened to happen on Halloween. So that's why I think this movie actually stands out really well. So that's why I picked this movie, and I just it's a for whatever reason it's a comfort movie. I watch it, I'm like, I love Tom Atkins. Stacey Nelkin's great. I've watched this so many times. I just know every beat by heart. And yeah, it's just to me, it's a really fun movie now to watch.
Jake.
Why why did Tom pick it? Uh, no, I think you're right, dude. It's like if you I read up a little bit on just the intention of the whole series at one point was like to be an anthology of movies that celebrate Halloween as a whole. And I think this one does that. It's kind of like this one does that very well compared to the other two, which kind of went down a rabbit hole and stuck with it for two movies, which is cool. But like this was sort of like, hey, what did we want to do with this series again? Oh yeah, make it. And I liked that there it's also kind of incorporating latex Halloween store masks. That
Yeah.
it's kind of like the creatures, you know. But yeah, dude, it's a fun movie.
Well, I went into this movie blind. I've never seen the first Halloween or the second Halloween. I grew up in India, moved to America at the age of 18. Currently, I'm speaking from Canada. And so I didn't grow up with Halloween at all. So I have a very unique and bizarre perspective of watching this movie. To me, what this movie was giving a lot of the vibes for some weird reason, was like The Thing, John Carpenter.
Mm.
And the similarity I was catching was like, that's another movie where it's driven by a crazy soundtrack and the villain is kind of invisible. Here, the villain is like what? Like the corporation.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
there, the villain is literally like invisible. And so I was like, interesting. Both those movies become an exercise in creating horror through shots, there's like major silent sequences in both movies. It's all mood. It's all like the synths and the way the characters are reacting, like long shots. And right now, when Tom, you were speaking, I like caught a word that you said, like comfort movie. The way I would describe this movie, the best time to watch it is like at 3 a.m., at night, or at camp with your friends. Like this would be a
Hmm.
movie that you would have like, I feel like you want to be in a sort of heightened reality to kind of enjoy its kind of campiness a little bit. But it is a little
Yeah.
campy.
Well, the same DP shot the first three. Dean Kundi was a DP, and they sort of have that consistency to it.
Hmm.
You watch this movie, it has that similar lighting style. The feel of it is very similar. And Dean also shot The Thing. I believe he shot The Fog too. I can't remember, but it's like a small town feel to it
Hmm.
because they go to the town where all the masks are made. And some of it's really silly. I mean, Tom Atkins plays a doctor. He still doesn't know what kind of doctor he was. If you watch the making of, it's awesome because he's like, "What doctor am I?" He's also an alcoholic. He's an alcoholic. His wife, he leaves his wife for an adventure, his ex-wife, I guess, and his kids, takes a six-pack of beer, hooks up with a hot chick whose father had, discovered the secret of why the
Dude,
masks
this movie is
work.
like the best of the 80s, like check, 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 check. It feels like such a time capsule.
He's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go on this adventure with this girl trying to find out who murdered her dad for no other reason. Somebody brought that up to me recently. I was like, oh, that's right. He had no reason to go other than he's curious and wants to get some tail. It's amazing. And yeah, the adventure takes them to a small town where it's all just creepy. Everybody in town knows what's going on.
It kind of reminds me of the Irvine Company.
Right. The evil corporation is actually also okay. So the lore of Halloween apparently is linked to also Stonehenge
Hmm.
and
That was
chipping
Amazing.
off rock to make it into discs so they can put it into the mask. And honestly, okay, something that okay, so Abene, so in America, we go door to door, knock on the doors, and we say trick or treat.
Right.
Okay, you give us some candy, or we'll TP your house, or
Hmm.
we'll throw eggs at your window, or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
So Connell Cochran, the person who runs the mask company, the Shamrock Mask
Camera. Yeah.
Company,
Yeah.
is he's pulling the biggest trick on people. He's pulling that's his main goal is just to pull a trick on society, and unfortunately, he has to sacrifice children, which it's really dark.
He's the
You
ultimate
know,
trickster.
he's an ultimate
what's the
trickster because
what's the end goal? Like what's the point of like is it kind of like Stepford
he
Wives
explains
where you just
he
replace everybody with robots?
he explains it at the end. He goes, our we always have to. It's population control.
Oh, I
He
missed
needs to. He needs to. Well, I mean, he needs to kill X amount of kids in order to satisfy his the sort of spiritual side of whatever. I'm guessing Wiccan because it's season of the witch.
It's like all
Yes.
these like themes are so of that time, this like fear of like these corporations, like conspiracy
Oh,
going at the top
yeah.
level, like
Yeah.
all this like
Yeah. You
post.
get there's a sense of paranoia
Yeah,
because they kill people off and then they sort of replace them somehow, or they just make very very accurate representation of humans, but they act weird still.
What,
There's a sense of AI to that. Yeah.
was this movie released in the theaters? Like, was this a theater release?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Dude, for some
yeah.
reason, like going back to that comfort movie thing, this movie gave me a very like late night programming kind of like feel. There was
It
something
is. It's a B,
weird, like
total
very
B movie.
like it's like it's a B movie. Like the even in the pace of the movie, they're like really taking their sweet time with it. Like it's like they don't care about the results, but they're really having fun with creating moods.
Okay, so I wish I would have seen this movie earlier, called Dead and Buried. It's the same sort of feel, which is like the small town that all the townspeople are kind of acting weird and creepy. And it's like you said, a mood, an atmosphere.
Hmm.
And that feels the same as this movie. And I desperately want to be around like Tommy Lee Wallace, the director of this,
Hmm.
Rick Rosenthal, the director of Halloween 2, and
Didn't
then
that Tommy Wallace
Burt
do
Becker.
it also
He did the original miniseries It in the 90s.
with
Tommy
the
Lee Wallace, he doesn't get enough credit. Like I really love like his sensibility in movie making. He just has this sort of tongue in cheek. Uh, he just understands that sort of horror aspect and comic book feel.
yeah? It's
I
like
met
not
him
taking
and Tom.
yourself too seriously. It's kind of like there's a little pulpiness to it.
Have fun, have fun with this. It is more or less silly, but at the same time, when it gets really violent, it's kind of really awful, you know? Like when the girl gets, or the woman who is the Karen, I guess I will call her the Karen, the woman who comes to that motel is like, these masks are falling apart. Look at this shit. I'm gonna go tell Connor. I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind. And then she finds this and it zaps her face. And in a little way, we all have that sort of like, yeah, take that, Karen. You know.
Yeah, that kid was annoying too.
Oh yeah. Well, so that family who showed up, that was done on purpose. They really wanted you to, kind of like, because he has that loud used car salesman jacket and
Yeah.
suit, and his wife is like, kind of nagging all the time. So when they get theirs in the small makeshift room of recreating a living room, you're
Mm.
like, oh God, that's awful. But at the same time, you're like, yeah, just be quiet, you family, you awful suburban American family, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much stuff in this movie. And then Stacey Nelkin's character,
Mm.
man, she was originally supposed to be the fifth replicant in Blade Runner, and they had to cut her role because they ran out of money. But yeah, she just sort of glide through all these like really iconic series. And I met her, Tom Atkins, and Tommy Lee Wallace at a convention, and they just have such a great vibe to them. They're just like, yeah, man, this is fun. And Tom Atkins for sure, because he's a Night of the Creeps, and he's just character actor, and Lethal Weapon, the original Lethal Weapon. He's just having fun, and he's got such a great attitude. So I
He's
love
all
that.
the
And
fucking
Stacey,
Atkins, dude.
yeah, they totally embraced this movie, even though it's like I think it was the lowest grossing Halloween movie
Well,
ever.
it's pretty
Like
ballsy, right? Like it's you're abandoning the main thing that's like been carrying the franchise so far.
yeah,
And
yeah,
honestly,
that
like
was
it's a kind of like what's that guy, the Ryan Johnson, Last Jedi kind of move to subvert the entire
it.
genre. Like you said,
It is.
instead of making it about slasher, they made it about like more about Halloween in a way and the masks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the when they said Halloween 3, they mean the three masks, really. That's what they said.
And to make the villain like corporate greed and consumerism and like corporate
Yeah.
conspiracy.
Well, the thing is, like, Dan O'Hurley, who plays the character, he's not he's an evil corporate guy, but the money part wasn't as like important to him as playing the biggest trick on society.
Mm.
So, he builds those little robot things, and it's just he's just creepy.
Mm.
But at the same time, it's
Yeah,
population
the
control.
creepiness of the
He,
movie, man.
there's an overall weird creep to it that, I don't know. I just have a great joy watching the film. Like, some of the effects, like ripping somebody's head up, like the bum who's drinking, ripping
Yeah.
his head off. Oh man, that's
Even like
brutal.
her face like
Perfect size.
exploding. Yeah.
Yeah, her face. Yeah, that. Like
Even like
her mouth is all.
even like little stuff like where like they're in the jungle or forest or something, and like two of those guys like pop up from behind, and then like they
Yeah.
grab him. Just the way it's paced, like it has that charming like goosebump sort of feel for me, you know. It's like late night
Mm.
programming, like that's supposed to make kids. I feel like this is a great horror movie for kids for
But
me.
okay, so as a kid,
Apart from sexy.
I'm not necessarily sure when I was a kid watching it. I wanted Michael Myers. I'll be honest. I was disappointed. It was the Alien 3 for me. Killing
Mm,
off Newton and Hicks was just a fu to the fans. But as I get older, if I watch that alone, the standalone movie, it's obviously one of the better installments, but not within the Halloween, what do they call it, canon.
mm,
It just stands out because Michael Myers doesn't exist in this film. In
mm.
fact, he's shown on TV. So in this world, Halloween, the movies are
Exit.
actually on TV. That's
Yeah.
kind of meta a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that sensibility.
That's where the
But yeah,
movie is. They went for it, you know. They're making like meta commentary. They're making meta commentary about consumerism, the worries of the time. Like, I mean, of course, it didn't succeed. You can see because it's almost like they're going a little too art house with it. While staying playing in this commercial background. You know, they
yeah.
should have gone
Well,
maybe
yeah.
a bit more experimental with the editing or the visuals. But they stayed in that.
To me, there's something that has an USC, the University of Southern California's film school feel.
Mm,
Robert Zemeckis came out of there,
mm,
Lucas obviously, and and John Carpenter. So
mm.
they have that USC feel to them, and I'm not sure how to describe that other than Dean Kundey shot everything these guys did. So give credit to the cinematography of this movie. And obviously it has that same mood that the original Halloween had, you know. And a lot of it was shot here in LA, so it has kind of an interesting like, I drove by some of the locations too, and Sierra Madre plays where that bar is still exists, you know. There's a gas station where the guy, Stacy Nelkin's dad, first drops off, and that exists, but it's kind of closed off right now, but it's still there in the valley. So yeah, it has an appreciation for Halloween.
Let me ask you guys this. Was it scary? It's supposed to be a horror movie. Was it scary for you, Jake?
movie. I mean, no.
Was it horrific, in any way?
I mean, it was grotesque. There were grotesque moments.
How about you, Tom? Would you describe this as like horrific or scary?
Horrific, not scary. Like they try to do a couple of jump scares, where the androids would jump out, or the men in black, I guess, would just jump out and grab somebody. And
Mhm.
there's slow kills, like where the guy's head is like crushed by um the cars coming together in that junkyard, I guess. There's the sort of orange juice that they spit out uh when they're just killed, and you're just like, what the hell kind of blood is that? So yeah, grotesque is actually a pretty good description of it. Was I scared? Even as a kid, I really wasn't that scared of it. It was just like, oh man, that's gross. Like that's terrible. Like his eyes getting popped out. You don't really see the all of it, I guess. Similar with the original Halloween too. The original Halloween,
Mm.
there's not very much violence in it, or blood or gore. It's a lot of like just creepiness, like
Hmm.
mood, obviously the Halloween feel. Um, they never really there's like a countdown, where that fucking ad comes on every once in a while just to remind you how many days
Dude,
of
that
Halloween.
song is so catchy.
Well, it's London Bridge, which is why it's catchy. And
Mm.
the history behind that is because it's royalty free, and they just sort of torqued it a little bit. And the guy's voice announcing is like, "Kids, come down," and now it's about. That's actually Tommy Lee Wallace saying that. He has a creepy, you know, uh, ad voice guy, I guess is what you call it. Like, children, tune in, 9 o'clock. So yeah, there's just sort of 80, like you said, the 80s vibe is all like wood panel walls and
MP.
you know, driving drunk, banging in hotels. Like
Okay, there's
this
something
is
to be
think I
said about
know.
like the way they shot like sex scenes and like romantic scenes in the 80s. I
Yeah.
really like them better. They really had a
Well,
more romance to them. Maybe it's because of film, like or the soft porn
well,
aesthetic
they
of
got okay. So their idea of seduction is this, which I find hilarious. Their idea of seduction is Tom Atkins. Where should I sleep? Or where she goes, where do you sleep? And he goes, that's a stupid question. And then next thing you know, they're in bed together. It's like that's 80s seduction. I love it. You know,
Dude, it was
done.
pre the time where people thought they had too many options. Now everyone
Yeah,
thinks they have too many options and everyone's miserable. It was like
yeah.
the dude's in the
Well,
room. He's gonna say
think
some
about this.
line, like it's gonna lead there. So whatever line they throw.
So okay, movie mind closed, right? So today, today's audience would be like, she's looking for her dad. What is she? Why is she banging that dude? Right? Like what? That's our mentality today.
Yeah.
Back then, we're like, go with it, dude.
Yeah.
Like go,
Like what do you go to the movie? Like what do you want the characters like happen? If there's
right?
the Chekhov's gun principle. Like for me, like if there's like an attractive enough couple or even like the hero, eventually I want to like bang like some character, just as I want him
Right.
to slay the dragon. Because I
Well,
am
like
if I'm really invested in the movie.
it was definitely a selling point back then where you had to do nudity so that you would go see it. As a kid, I would always be like, "Ooh, it's got nudity. I'm gonna see it," or teenager really. So I'd see like in your back in the day they had a TV guide, and you see like the rating on it is say V for violence, or like and I'd always look for the N for nudity, and like
Even
you
something to that, like the way
watching.
they shot it in the movies back then, even though it was gratuitous, like they're really being like kind of like, dude, it's like there's no CGI. In fact, there's even like less makeup. It's just like, dude, isn't a boob amazing? Here's a shot of a boob.
Yeah,
I'm in for it.
yeah,
I was watching Tenabra the other day. That's a
uh,
Dario Argento movie, Italian giallo horror. They are all about gratuitous nudity. Like they're just like a porn star or a prostitute is just like weaved into the plot just so they can do like gratuitous nudity.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
fun as a hell, dude. It's like I was like laughing out loud, like just the way they were so brazen about it. Like in the middle of a scene, like a character, like tit would just like come out. And it was like
yeah,
hilarious. It was like,
yeah.
dude,
I saw.
these are movies. They're supposed to be fun and like stupid.
Yeah, like a lot of Italian giallo does have that. I remember I watched something recently that just such fucking blatant nudity. And it's like, did this really, was that
No, there's
necessary?
something about like
No.
moving your set. There's a reason like why this mix comes together of this fragile female sexuality mixed with slasher horror like murder. Though
Yeah, well,
there's something in our psychology, those emotions are very like close by of fear and lust, of
vulnerability,
vulnerability.
vulnerability.
Like the way they get like I guess triggered in your head during this like continuous experience, it
Yeah,
works. Like in my
yeah,
horror, like I want like more of a gut punch than like pathos. I want pathos in my drama. in my horror, I kind of want to, it's almost like horror even stems from that illogical, more primitive, more subconscious part of your brain. So I wanted to
Yeah.
delve into some of these darker, more immoral territories, you know?
Well, do you think, okay, so do you think this movie is rated R now? Is it a rated R movie today?
Honestly, from today's standards, it seemed very kiddie to me. Apart from like just the sex scenes, like it was like almost it could have been like a you could watch this on Disney Channel, man. Like it's goosebumps. It's goosebumps.
I mean, Jake, would you consider this like in today's standards, would you consider it a rated R movie?
No, maybe PG-13
Yeah.
because it's goofy and it's kind of it's goofy. It's
Yeah,
goofy
even
like
when he rips off the guy's head, it the blood splurting kind of was like kind of funny, you know?
there was this. I feel like there was this kind of reliance because I've seen it up until like maybe 15 years ago where uh you know someone will get or commission a really like not detailed waxy looking body double or or like like fake body to burn or to have as a prop or whatever, and they've always got those like wide open eyes, no expression, or the
Mhm.
expression is kind of like, you get into that uncanny valley discussion. But like the when one of those suited agents gets in the car and lights himself on fire and you see the
Yeah.
burn body,
Yeah, it's basically like,
and it's yeah,
yeah,
and it's I think when you like if you shoot it from the back or like you shoot it kind of profile in in whatever way, but not like directly on with like a giant key over here and
yeah,
then it starts looking like a prop. And I think when when theatrical movies were being projected in 16 millimeter, shooting these types of effects didn't they you could hide the seams a lot better, I think.
yeah,
And it became more plausible. So I would actually be interested to watch this one 16 millimeter positive
yeah.
in like a
Well, I mean, it, like if we were to say that he was a sort of a synthetic or an android, it doesn't bother me as much looking back on it, Like when
yeah,
you
for
first
sure.
watch it, like that guy looks fucking like a mannequin. And then when you look back, he's like, he is a
He is a
mannequin.
mannequin. Yeah. But I mean that
Yeah.
effect pops up often, and a lot of times there are characters who aren't mannequins
Oh,
who
it's
look
super
like
silly. Yeah.
mannequins when they're on fire, and you're like, okay, that
Yeah.
a little bit. But then, yeah, like I wonder what it looks like on 16.
Right. To hide the seams and everything.
Dude,
Yeah.
Yeah.
fun fact. I recently went to Lift, Liaisons of Independent Filmmakers of Toronto, and they had a room with an optical printer, the same
Hmm.
machine they made the original Star Wars on.
Yeah.
So it
The
had
pearl.
a machine where with like an actual Bolex attached to it, and you can use it to like composite stuff and take an image, blow it up, blow 16 mm to 35 mm.
Yeah.
So again, going back to like uh, SFX versus VFX, um, there is something to be said, man, about a collage even versus like a digitally morphed image. Like in that, I see so many of these AI videos these days, and they go into this uncanny valley of like where AI confuses, like, they can't find an edge. Like bodies get mixed up with each other sometimes, like they can't find fingers properly. And
Yeah.
it's just right, but not right enough compared to like, a newspaper collage like people would do back in the day, where you can tell the fakeness, but the idea is more prevalent. Where if I
Hmm.
see like, a diver dive into like a cup that is now represented as a pool, I'm getting the idea that they're doing, even though the facade of it is more visible at the seams. And I don't mind that. That's why I don't mind cheap effects in David Lynch movies or like,
Mm,
cheap effects in these old movies. Like they're
yeah,
tactile, they're real. The idea is coming through, instead of being like some lazy afterthought.
Hmm.
yeah.
It's like those.
So
That's an interest. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. Go, Jake.
No, I was saying that was a good way to describe it as like a collage, like a digital collage versus an analog collage.
Yeah. So, question for you guys:
Hmm.
Was Stacey Nelkin's character an android from the beginning?
No,
Because
no.
no.
After she disappeared, because he takes real people, makes synthetic versions of them, and then she was the synthetic version. And I feel
Okay.
like he would have figured it out, you know, at least once they were in the hotel after a night.
Which is just drooling orange juice.
Oh, I should have had water for breakfast.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have been a different movie if it would have been just a John Carpenter project, and if it wouldn't have been called Halloween 3, if it was like a whole other film and just John Carpenter was doing it?
Yeah, dude, it could have been like a Michael Crichton book that, you know, someone just popped out.
Just call it Season of the Witch,
Season
Yeah.
of the
you
Witch,
know?
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Was it
the
ever a
thing
book?
is,
Movie, right?
that's kind of a double-edged sword because the Halloween label sort of tried to get people in the theater,
Hmm.
but unfortunately, once they got to the theater, everyone spilled the beans and said, "This isn't Michael Myers isn't in it."
Hmm.
Because I remember the outrage when that happened, that Michael Myers wasn't in the movie,
Hmm.
and they were so pissed off. And it's like, well, you saw Halloween 2 and he blew up. What do you expect?
Hmm.
You
Mhm.
know, like
Yeah, he's gone.
there's a lot of there's a lot of series that sort of try to outsmart the audience in a way. So I think, having watched Halloween 4, later on, it was like, God, if they were going to bring him back, this is the movie they wanted to bring him back in. This is terrible.
Hmm.
Um, which even Halloween 4 has gotten its sort of like, cult following as well now. So it's weird. These Halloween tends to like, you know, how much more can you sort of get from this series?
Well, that's kind of why I liked the idea of them looking at it as an anthology, because when kind of it felt like you could have done like a creep show style thing, like a creep show style brand, but instead of shorts, it's features, and they happen
Yeah,
over let's say three movies. The first
yeah,
one, is this Michael Myers story,
yeah,
and there's maybe it didn't completely end, but then like you could have hopped into this as a part two and something completely unrelated to the other two as a part
hmm,
three. And I think it could have been a Halloween trilogy with a cult following and people really excited about it. Like if you didn't do Halloween 2 and you only did Halloween
correct,
1 and Halloween 3
correct.
and then some unknown other story in the style
Yeah,
of Creep Show, I think people would have, their opinions would have been completely different about this movie.
yeah. They locked themselves in when they did Halloween 2. They really did in a lot of ways. One, because they introduced Michael Myers as Laurie's brother, right? And
Yeah.
then that was mistake. They consider a mistake. I actually like it. I'm in that camp of thinking that that's a pretty good connection because like a motive
Makes
murdering
sense.
from no motivation was great as a one off. But if you're going to make a series, then it has to have a connection some way. That's just,
Yeah.
obviously that's not popular opinion, but so in terms of, you're right. Halloween, if Halloween 3 was Halloween 2, that would have like sort of spun it into every year they could have done something different as a
Yeah,
Halloween
and
movie.
then Halloween 3 could have been Dark Star or something, you know?
Yeah. Like the sky was the limit at that point, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, those movies then can, like, if you establish it enough, then those movies can have their own sequels, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Halloween 1 can have its own, spin-off like forever, as it did. And then Halloween 2 could have its own, going off with the maybe not maybe well Halloween, let's say Halloween 3 became Halloween 2, then you're like maybe not so much Season of the Witch, maybe not so much because
Okay,
it
so
ends the way it should.
ratings time. How much would you
Oh,
rate
okay.
it on?
Me,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. It's just a really time capsule of that era. It looks great still. Dean Kundi, give credit, feels like it's within that same universe from all the Halloweens, or not the first two. Tom Atkins is just so much fun. I mean, he's grabbing ass. He's just crazy. He's such a good everyman. He's not a. It's funny because he's not like the leading man that they could have hired. They hired just a normal, dude, and it's just the spirit of Halloween is within it, like truly. Talking about the history of the sacrifices. Connell Cochran, Dan O'Hurley, Hurley's character is just amazing. His acting is great. That slow clap at the end when he goes, "You bested me." He doesn't say it. He just starts clapping. He's like, "You got me, buddy. You got me." And I was like, "Oh shit, that's great." So yeah, 4 out of 5.
Jake?
I concur with 4 out of 5.
Wow, man, this was big popular with you guys.
It's good. It's good craft work. Like it's a well crafted movie on
Correct.
every level. You know, the actors aren't well,
One more day till
songs.
Halloween.
Okay, so Jake, you were talking about your rating.
Yeah, so it was well crafted. It seemed like the actors were into it.
Hmm.
You had an amazing cinematographer. It was a great movie, great effects. Tom Berman did a lot of the effects. It was well made.
What other stuff has Tom Berman done? His name sounds familiar.
It's done a lot. His kids are instructors at Stan Winston School.
Oh, cool.
So they go back for quite a long history. I'm not too familiar. I think he did a Planet of the Apes at one point. Um,
Yeah, his name came up. Yeah, it's weird.
Dude,
yeah,
who did the Planet of the Apes with Tim Roth?
The
The Tim
physical,
Burton
or
one. The Tim Burton one.
we're talking about the makeup effects.
oh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, he did Island of Dr. Moreau, Close Encounters. There's
I think Close Encounters was the one I remember seeing his name come up.
Goonies.
Yeah,
Berman Industries, I think, was sold to Reynolds at one point. I could be wrong. I believe that was the case. Really,
right.
there were Or no, they were sold to someone else. Maybe. I'm not
I
really
feel
sure.
like I
But
think I've seen the Berman.
uh,
I feel like I've seen the Berman name up here in the valley somewhere
yeah, probably
because
Berman Industries because they make like materials or
yeah,
materials.
yeah, right, right. You can walk in and you can buy like latex and
Yeah,
the spirit gum, all that stuff, right?
yeah.
Oh,
Um,
and Heather Langenkamp's husband also has a shop up here somewhere in the valley.
who's that?
Heather Langenkamp was in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
She was she was the last girl in Nightmare on Elm Street. Final girl, final girl. Yeah,
Halloween's
but
final girl trope, right? Where Jamie Lee Curtis.
that's been, I would say, Black Christmas was the first time there was a final girl.
Oh.
That was before Halloween, the original Halloween.
Hmm.
Okay, so Abinay, what'd you rate this?
I was gonna rate this a 2.5, but honestly,
Mhm.
I'm gonna give it another half just for the soundtrack. Even without the annoying ass Shamrock like theme, the synths, man, I was digging the like kind of DIY nature of this film, like I imagine just John Carpenter in his like basement, just on a synth, making the entire soundtrack to this film. And like
Right.
it's stuff like that, like the SFX is all done, like it's all like very industrial, like cottage industry, just in-house.
Um, was Alan Howarth, was he one of the composers on it, or was it just Carpenter? I thought it was Alan Howarth who took over
Was he?
because
I didn't even check the composer. I just saw the synthy sounds. I was like, this sounds like John
yeah,
Carpenter.
yeah. Well, I mean, Alan and John worked on the original Halloween together,
Hmm.
and he went on to do most of the Halloween movies. Alan did. So, and he's a strange dude. You watch the behind the scenes stuff. He is one strange guy. Um, yeah. So, you're gonna give it a 3 out of 5?
3, solid 3.
Okay. And this is after not knowing really what Halloween really
Yeah,
means
just
to
this
you.
as a standalone movie, as like a random weird sci-fi from the 80s. I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, I would enjoy it late at night.
Yeah, I mean, I still love the idea that he's just pulling a prank. Like, wait till they see, what's gonna happen. Though they never explain what it was the year before. Oh no, it happens I think they also said it happened every like hundred of years or something like that. So yeah, the cleansing of the earth.
It does
Um,
again like have like that almost Zardos like feel of like a lot of big ideas strained by a limited budget, but the kind of like, you know, throwing the kitchen sink at it nature of it kind of encourages you to go make your own movie. It's like, dude, a movie
it
can be
does.
anything, man. Like, what the
You
fuck?
don't
Like,
need
why do we
much.
take ourselves so seriously? We should just go out
Uh,
and make anything because anything is a movie.
the thing is, you don't really need that much for a movie like this. You have two people going on this slight adventure. I mean, the factory thing was kind of cool to see, but for the most part, it's a really a cheap, budgeted film.
But it's like sometimes, like, I myself like get so caught up in this, like, why? Why should a movie be made? What is the story that needs to be told? And you can like have this debate infinitely, like what the most important and valuable story is to be told. And you can find the most tragic and like, human, real story. And it can come and go. Or like,
Yeah,
you can go from the kind of almost like childish nature of like, hey, the nature of storytelling is supposed to be play. So we should just grab some like crayons, grab some toys, and just throw them together and like, see where it goes. That's where like the pace of this movie was like there was so much mood in it. I feel like part of it was like They sort of kind of had an idea. They're like, all right, kids, Halloween's, masks, Tom Atkins, a
Yeah.
sex scene, and fucking hey, let's just start shooting and
Um,
we'll figure the rest of it out. Let's just start shooting.
so the other thing is like, okay, so there probably was a little bit of like, let's not hurt kids in this movie. This movie hurt kids. They were perfectly fine hurting kids, you know.
Dude.
Uh,
Also, like it speaks to the time because like this is right around the time where like kids were starting to appear on milk cartons and whatnot, right? Like
yeah,
there was a real sense of like, yo, where are your kids after 10? Like, kids can get
yeah.
kidnapped and shit, and like there's dangers out for
We,
kids. That's why I'm
I
like,
mean, imagine
good scary movie for a child, you would be frightened. Like you'd be like, damn.
imagine an entire town that has a curfew. You know, they tell you, the factory's telling everyone, hey man, it's 6 o'clock, everybody go inside, and they
Hmm.
just obey. You know, the town, the town exists because the factory is there, right?
Right.
Everybody works for the factory. And then visitors that come in and out, there's nothing really sort of, drawing much attention to it, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
And bread and butter is to make these Halloween masks. It's like Spirit Halloween, you know.
Hmm.
Who knows where Spirit Halloween comes from? They
Hmm.
just pop up, you
Hmm.
know, in a mall or a foreclosed,
Dude, that's so
you
true.
know, house.
Spirit
Yeah,
Halloween could be like a vestige of
Taco cockroach.
Shamrock
Yeah,
Cochrane.
there you go. So yeah, I just absolutely, and plus it's getting to be that mood of Halloween this
Hmm.
time. So I choose that movie because it's got that Halloween mood. More so, you know what?
Sure.
I feel like it has more of the mood than the first two. Totally Halloween
To
mood.
talk about Halloween mood, man. Toronto is all about Halloween mood. It's
Nice.
cloudy everywhere, just like
Things are
gloom.
changing. Yeah,
That's well, yeah, the colors are changing, the leaves are turning like orange. Yeah.
love it. I miss that. I really
Dude,
do.
and it's stuff like that, man. Even if digital is able to approximate what the most dazzling oranges, turn the saturation all the way up high, create like some crazy kind of HDR image. It's
Yeah,
good. You guys are missing on like these natural elements that when photographed just look, they're just pleasing to the soul. Some of the comfort
so,
movie aspect of this also comes from like it being rooted in like a season, in a time. You feel the coldness, of that time where it's rooted in. You feel like you're in that neighborhood. You feel like
yeah.
Halloween is actually there.
So did you guys see the Blumhouse ones, most recent three Halloweens? Okay, so they don't lean. The problem with those movies is they don't lean into that feeling you're talking about. The light is at the horizon, it's dropping. It's warm light, it's the
That's
horizon light.
part of
It's
my problem with those Blumhouse movies and horror movies in general, where they don't even seem of this reality. I'm like,
mhm,
bro, where is this fucking bluish, glum world? Like, it's desaturated to like, these like this digitally created, like, where does this world exist?
yeah,
Like something about film, like, even when you use the tricks, the filters, just the nature of its chemical process and it's feeling like a
yeah,
memory, like I can, for some reason, accept it more. Oh, De Niro standing on like a glass room and it's bathed in blue. I'm like, I'll buy it. I'll buy the style because it feels like more tactile for some reason. Whereas when I see these modern movies and, you know, this ghost appears out of complete black and everything is like this shaded gray. I'm like, where is this? Where I
yeah.
can't place myself here.
Yeah, it's sort of unfortunate that people want to go sort of more naturalistic in terms of lighting wise. And again, we've talked about this in the past that I think that's why there's no movie stars anymore because you don't light them like movie stars. Even in this movie, Tom Atkins looks like a damn movie star, you know?
Dude, I was reading something about that, like about Glenn Powell, where
Mhm.
like and the
in
success
Twisters.
of Twisters.
Yeah.
They weren't betting like a lot of that movie. Like the amount the movie made in like its opening weekend was what they were hoping it would make in its lifetime connection. And for some reason, like, like having done Maverick or a few of his past projects, Anyone But You, people went in to see Glenn Powell because he was the star. He pulled in people, but then the movie was shot on film, the quality was decent enough. And then those
Oh,
things connect. It's like there's the right dude is there at the right time, shot on the right moment. You see him on a screen. That's a fucking movie star. There you go. Another one can be
yeah.
born. And who
Well,
time
it's
will
what
tell, how
there.
large the success is. But I mean, sometimes like these experiments are still happening,
Well, there was a. It's interesting about that situation because there was a conversation between that he mentioned that he said Tom Cruise sat
he's
me down
mentoring you.
and told him what the difference was between film and digital. That was an interesting thing. Like Tom Cruise knows what a difference film is versus digital.
What did he say?
And he just said, well, he just said, this is what film looks like, and this is what digital looks like. And you will, I'm guessing this is what you want. Because he said in the Twisters sizzle reel, it's
Hmm.
like everybody looks good on film. That's what Glenn
Yeah,
Powell said.
yeah.
So I'm sure that's probably what he's parroting what Tom Cruise may have said to him, you know? And that's what makes, honestly, I think that's what makes movie stars and
So-
proof in that,
And that's what
in the
makes
Twister.
cinema, like a lot of the movies we've done, or almost, I would say, in fact, all the movies we've done have been like cinema movies. None of these movies are like, videos or TV shows or stuff you should actually be watching on a screen. They're supposed to be
Yeah.
experience. And I want to talk something to that effect, like where is cinema headed? Is it dead? Is there a future? What was your last like cinematic experience that blew your socks off?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, if we're going to answer that question, I saw the 25th anniversary of Matrix,
Hmm.
and my God, that movie's good. I forgot how good it was. I kind of distanced myself because when it first came out, I watched it like 100 times,
Hmm.
and then I waited about 10 years before I actually revisited it again. I was like, oh my God, and I saw it on the big screen because I had it in the theater, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many things I forgot that this movie had that was beyond anything of that time. And it's pretty prescient today because of AI. They're saying AI takes over. They end up
Right,
making up batteries to fuel them.
right.
So is that happening now? You know, 25 years ago, they called it out, and I was like, God bless them. This is cool. You know?
And we just lived through it, watching ourselves go slowly into that, into the make.
Yeah, we did.
What about you, Jake?
Okay.
What was your like, and what do you think about cinema and the relevance of it and the longevity of it?
Hmm. Well, people are still doing document archival on a 16 millimeter black and white.
Fucking A.
And it's kind of fun because an SSD will hold a charge for a very finite amount of time. Like it has an internal charge that magnetizes the substrate that it stores information in, and that'll go away at some point. Like it'll just
Interesting.
disappear. And a SATA
Oh,
drive, has a lot of mechanical parts. And if you don't run it a whole lot, that's fine. You can use it as art. You can pop it in, maybe run it once a year just to keep it going. And it'll last you quite a while. Um, you have tape, which is fragile in terms of temperature, but can store a lot for very cheaply for like I think now it's into like multiple decades up to almost 100 years with LTO 8 and 9. And then you have like Blu-ray M discs, which instead of like encoding into a dye layer, it etches it into a stone layer. So theoretically, it can last for up to 1,000 years.
Mm.
And then you have film, and I think under the right conditions, nitrate film was pretty problematic, but I think with the film that's created now, I think we'll always be create, extracting fossil fuels and producing um, byproducts from refining somewhere in the world or in outer space or wherever. Like
Mm.
we're gonna use fossil fuels because the amount of energy that you have in fossil fuels is very high. Like latent energy is very high, and it's a very useful substance. And I think as long as we're refining petroleum, we'll have the byproducts needed to make film currently. And like there's work to find alternative types of materials that are, you can regenerate and like that are hemp-based polymers and stuff like that. But I really think that film stored properly, even if like colored film shifts magenta or yellow over, a period of time,
Mm.
um, it's if you store it right and everything, it's pretty solid, and it's better having your source footage on that than on a hard drive that could potentially fail within your lifetime. So I think, you could always rescan the thing. Yeah, you could always rescan your negatives
Mm.
and your positives. So if you make a positive print out of something, you could always rescan it at a higher resolution as sensor technology gets better, as we've seen over like the last 20 years. And so it's as an origination medium, I think until you can accurately correlate a single piece of silver to a pixel and not go any higher fidelity than that, film will be valuable as an origination and an archival medium.
Wow, man, that was one of the most thorough answers I've heard to that question. Dude, knocked it out of the park. And what would you say was the last uh kind of mind-blowing cinema experience you had?
Um, Honestly, it was probably, I think it was Oppenheimer on IMAX.
Nice. That was a good one.
And before that was um, Pi blown up from the original positives that they shot.
Darren
Um,
Aronofsky Spy?
yeah, and it was blown up to IMAX. So it looked the
Oh,
grain, like I didn't walk up to the screen, but the grain was like as big as my head. From
wow.
what I could tell, it was like, or at least, a hand. Like it was huge. And
Wow.
it
Right.
was just for the spectacle of it, it was like thinking about how small it was
Hmm.
versus like how big it is now was kind of mind blowing. Just on a technical level, both of them, but that one in particular was like, and it was raining really bad that night, and it drove through the rain. It's pretty wild, but it was worth it, man. Because like Darren Aronofsky was there, and a
Oh,
couple
wow.
others, and they did a little Q&A afterwards. But it was just seeing that blow up to IMAX was like, this is what an age to be alive, man.
Yeah.
Okay, for
What
sure.
about you? What about you, Abane?
For me, it would be Blowout most recently. I saw
Mm,
Blowout at the New Beverly, and man, like, see, honestly, like there, I felt more horror and thrill. Like, there
mm,
were actually like scary moments. Like, I don't know how like the power does it. It's that Hitchcockian like tone, you know. He really knows how to turn up that like suspense and like thrill and this impending sense of doom. And um, that there's something to be said for that, you know, that collective experience. The quality of the film had was so blown out that it was turning like reddish.
mhm.
Print had been used so much, like it was lower quality, but just everyone was enjoying it so much. Not a single person was on their phone. Like we were all in it, like for that hive mind, and that's the experience I go for. And before that, it was Night of the Living Dead at Vidiots. And that was another similar experience.
Well, can I change my answer then? The ASCF Film Festival,
Hey!
2024.
No, honestly,
Get get a plug in there.
that was a crazy experience too, like film wise. Like I remember like being in there like back to back, getting hit with film from like different
Yeah.
aspects. They're all shot on film and like I
Seeing
was
your big
man,
ass head on the screen.
with my
Seeing
big
your
ass
big ass head up on the screen.
dude, it did feel like for a little time it did feel like I was in a different time. I was like, man, this must it have been like what it felt like when people were like, just would randomly pop into a theater in the 70s, to catch like some flicks or something. Like there was
Mm,
something beautiful about it. Like everyone was present. No one was on their phone. Everyone, that's what they wanted to see, the thing on the screen. And
yeah.
that was beautiful.
Yeah. So that's a plug for a club.
For ASCF, man, next year, ASCF 4,
325.
2025, baby. 2025, the year we
part
go global.
part four. Um,
You hear it here,
so anyway,
folks. ASCF 2025 happening at Abu Dhabi.
yeah, that'd be crazy. So anyway, any final words of this movie, Abene, since this is, more or less like your first time even
Uh, dude,
experiencing
fun.
Halloween.
Like, honestly, this is the kind of movie I would watch, like, with like a random hookup date and we start banging, and this is the kind of movie I would put on. And it would be
Nice.
nice to be just playing in the background as you're doing your thing. And maybe sometimes you'd pay attention and be like, whoa, wait, what is happening? And then you go back to your stuff.
Right. So background noise. Great.
Background noise. It's like, but also like kind of it could work as background noise, but also like late night, you just can't sleep or you're just like up, you're surfing through stuff. There's nothing anywhere, and that's the time you put this on.
It's a total mood. Yeah, it's
It's a
mood.
mood. It's a mood.
Atmosphere and mood. Atmosphere and mood.
What about you?
Cool, dude. Me?
Last.
I love this film. I know everybody, I can't talk highly, I can't talk enough about it. Um, I
Well, it
think
was your pick.
should be, I think it should be the Halloween movie, that everyone watches every year instead of Halloween. Because
Hmm.
Halloween's not really a Halloween movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hot take over there, Tom. Jake,
It's
how
not.
about you?
It's a babysitter killer movie.
No, man. Recommend it. I mean, I like hearing your perspective coming from, I mean, because you lived in India till you were 18.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, like watching these older movies and then getting a little bit of your perspective uh, on them because
Absolutely.
it's so different than, what I know and
And for me,
Yeah,
like
we're
experiences.
seeing it from nostalgia.
I get to touch onto some of the purity of these films, because I'm missing that, like, and I see it in you guys, like, you have like a kind of personal connection to some of these movies, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun for me too.
When
Wow,
did when did you see when did you see The Fly?
The Fly I saw
How,
as a
how
kid. How old was I? I have to be like under 12, over 8.
interesting.
Yeah, in that range.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it was like my dad like got some like masochistic joy out of like watching me squirm, watching scary stuff. And he would like kind of like sneak me into them. This was a great one where I was like, yeah, this seems like fun until it wasn't. Yeah, that was a horrifying experience. But since we're
Um,
here, why don't we pick our movie for the next week too?
oh shit.
Right this second.
Oh gee.
I mean,
Okay.
like, if
I'm I'll do Man on Fire.
Man
My
on Fire,
boy,
It's a good one.
my boy,
is that the
my
one with
boy took
You know what actually I'll do because I didn't get much time to talk about it when you had brought it up the other day, but I'll do Domino.
Domino?
oh shit. Two Tony Scotts.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
man. Domino is the
So
shit.
it's really underrated.
Wait, isn't Man on Fire Denzel Washington?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I see the mood over
Actually, a
here.
remake.
It got very like 90s, 80s. Um, dude, um,
I would
fucking,
actually say
I want to see something.
Domino is one of my formative ones.
Domino's is one of the favorite ones. I want to
Damn.
go something classic, man. Someone that just never disappoints. And for that,
Casablanca. No, I'm just
I want to go with something Kurt Russell, dude. But I feel like I picked
Tombstone.
Trouble in Little China last time and it didn't work. So this time I want to try um Escape from New York.
Okay,
New York.
another. Yeah,
I like that.
It's
I've seen that
New
so many
York.
times.
Snake Plissken, dude. Can't beat Snake Plissken.
Love it. Love it.
All right, let's see. Let's see right now.
This could all be like our show could all be like the TNT thing. Dudes who like movies or
Oh
dude, you
I know
know?
I can't see it. It's coming
God.
in now. It's keying it out.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh God.
you're gonna have to
We're
like
back.
do a screenshot and send it or something.
All right, I can just tell you what it is. It's Escape from New York.
Yeah,
Cool.
right on.
Oh
Hey,
God.
another Carpenter vibe. I'm totally down. I love it.
Okay, you can't see it, but yeah, that's it.
We'll talk more about it next week, but that movie I didn't see fully until like maybe a year ago. I watched bits and pieces. It gets weird.
I feel like John Carpenter gets a lot of props, but it's not enough. I feel like any praise of John Carpenter is not enough praise.
I think it was on cable the last time I saw it.
Yeah. I have studied this movie more than probably Halloween 3.
Dude,
Um,
what a great outfit. What a great look. What a great name. His name is Snake Plissken. Take all my money. Just take it.
all
Can't wait
right.
for next week, folks.
Until next week,
Until next week, this is
Escape
Cinephilia
of New
signing
York.
Adios.
31 days till Halloween. 31 days till Halloween.
off.
Halloween.